how to prepare and thrive at work in the face of uncertainty is why we're here.
What I would say that people never expect to lose jobs. Nobody goes into employment to think that the next day I'm going to lose my job.
You see, those that you thought weren't working hard, getting the promotion. You put in the long hours, you put in all your diligence, you bypass by promotion.
When you have that mindset that things can change anytime, you prepare.
You should start preparing for your retirement when you get your first contract. Am I in this job because I want to or I have to? Welcome everyone to the first episode of People and Culture Chronicles by the HR Funhouse and Moving Ads Uganda. I'm Christian Lenana from EBC, a business management consulting firm, and your host for this debut episode. And with me, I have Paul and Stellah, and I'd like to ask them to introduce themselves.
Hi, our viewers. I'm Stellah Mbekeka, an HR professional and a certified etiquette coach who is very passionate about mentoring women into leadership. Glad to be here.
Thank you. My name is Paul Rumanda Rugambwa, a human resource professional and management executive, a certified global remuneration practitioner, and above all, a mentor and passionate about business and people and ensuring we can optimize efficiencies. Glad to be here.
And on this first episode, we are excited to delve into a subject that's been triggered by what's going on around the world and in Uganda. And this specific subject is navigating uncertainty at work and how best we all can thrive. And I'd like maybe Stellah, when you think about uncertainty at work, how would you want to contextualize uncertainty at work?
Uncertainty comes in different phases, I would say. And when I hear the word uncertainty at the workplace, I would think about fear. I would think about less engagement. I would think about loss. I would think about not knowing what to do next. So you're at a crossroads and you do not know what life is going to throw at you in the next day or minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think about that?
So to me, uncertainties start from the day you're born because you literally know nothing or expect nothing. But when we come to the workplace, it starts on the day you apply for that job. You're unsure of whether you're going to have the opportunity given to you. And if you get that opportunity, you're unsure of whether you're going to have a good manager. So the uncertainty of you'll have it rough with whoever supervises you. The uncertainty on whether you'll grow into that role or into that company, because we all have aspirations. We think bigger and out of this world in what we want to do. We've had dreams. So you walk in with all these fears, like Stellah has mentioned. Will I grow? Will I find a good boss? Will I make friends? Okay. What happens if I get an accident? Do I keep that job? What happens if a promotion is passed by me? What do I do? And of course, the ultimate fear most of us have suddenly is retirement, because each year that goes by, each hour that goes by, you're growing old. But even before that, it's the sudden loss of that job. Could be because your company is falling and closing. Could be because you work in a donor-funded environment and the carpet is pulled down off your feet. Or it could be because you had a disciplinary issue and you're asked to leave. So there's a lot of that fear we as human beings bring to the workplace. But more so in today's environment, AI has brought a lot of uncertainties. You don't know whether the job you're doing today will be replaced. You'll be replaced by a robot tomorrow. So I think more than ever, the people joining the workplace today, those that have been in the workplace for over 30 years, starting to question and ask themselves, do I have the skills to keep it relevant? Okay, do I know what the future holds? Because every other day the world is changing as fast as it was or never before, purely. So for me, uncertainties surround us every other day. Things are changing faster than they did maybe 10, 20 years ago. I think every 30, 40 days, technology is advancing. So Stellah literally mentioned it, fear, but the fear is, loss of income, sudden loss of income.
Yeah, and maybe just to ask, because I mean, people go to school and with the idea of that I'm going to get a good job, and so basically from the onset, I don't think like people get into a job with uncertainty in their minds. The idea for them or for everyone who goes into a job is that I graduated from school and I got a good job and it's now time for me to enjoy life. So I also understand that when you're looking at this topic of uncertainty, it's nobody's fault from the onset, because I mean, I worked so hard in school so that I could do a job, so that I could get a good job. So then how then do you tell me that now I got a good job, I should start planning for probably when the company is going to fold? How do you tell me to plan for working with a boss who isn't good? In my mindset, what I've been told is that go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and your life will be fun. So, and I think that's how we all go into workplaces and just expect the fun to roll. But you get into a workplace and you now start navigating uncharted waters, and this is why exactly we are here to discuss.
Nobody anticipates the worst, but like we say, uncertainty, it will definitely come at the time you least expect it. And it takes a lot of courage for you to navigate through anything that hits you on the head. Yeah, oftentimes it's fear that we front, at first. But how you navigate through, I think it's what we need to discuss, and how can people manage to run through the things that hit them on a daily. For instance, like Paul mentioned, that you go to a workplace anticipating to have a good boss. But I've experienced challenges where you change management, top management, everybody wants to clear everything in the dustbin. Yeah, they want to empty everything. You're changing everything from the way you're operating, the way you relate, the work environment is changing. So whereas you're not going to change your job, but the uncertainty of you not knowing what your manager or your top leadership expects is going to keep you on your toes. So how you navigate through that, it takes courage and preparation. I think we just need to let people know that these are real life stories. We need to prepare ahead of time because it can hit anybody at any point in time.
Okay, Stellah, I understand and I appreciate that. So, okay, good boss, bad working environment, but I'm thinking, about specifically what's happening right now within the world context. I mean, across the globe and in Uganda, people are losing jobs because company XYZ is folding, company XYZ cannot sustain their budgets anymore, and we're having hundreds of people going home and they have responsibilities to take care of, and we all know what's happening in the society. So, Paul, I'd maybe want to find out, or maybe just to poke you a bit, is the uncertainty of a job loss. Do you think it's actually one of the leading number one uncertainty at the workplace?
I think it depends where you are in your career, and if you think about it, in which age category you are. Okay, so yes, job loss is a real uncertainty, especially in a country like ours, whereby if you do not have a unique skill you bring to the table, okay, if there is a huge supply of whatever you bring to the table, whatever qualification you have, and in this environment where we all think about, we're all asked what you bring to the table. That's one. And eventually when you start seeing what we're seeing today, companies are folding up, the globalization, we're becoming a small global village, okay? Company X can run its call center out of India or out of Nairobi, and you're a call center agent, okay? Or chatbots can now answer those calls and respond to customer queries. So then you start asking yourself, what relevance do I have in today's job market? Okay. So it was easy. Earlier you mentioned, you go to school, get good grades, you're told everything will work out for you. Jump into the place of work. It's not a linear staircase to get there. You see those that you thought weren't working hard, getting the promotion. You put in the long hours, you put in all your diligence, you bypass by promotion. Next thing is there is a fall-off of employees. You're the first one there, or you fear, will I be the first one or will I be the next one? So job loss definitely presents the first biggest uncertainty, because then you've lost your income. If you're a breadwinner, you can't provide for your family. Okay, and in Africa, they say for every one employed person, they have another 10 people they're looking after. So that does present a real fear for all of us.
Okay. So I think, yes, uncertainty at work. Then we say, job loss looks like number one right now. I know there are many others, but right now in this season, in this moment, when we are having this discussion, job loss, we could actually just decide to say, let's discuss about job loss. Stellah, job loss, where do you start? First of all, do people ever see it coming? Do people ever see themselves losing jobs? Do we even think that a time will come that we'll have to leave work?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Especially for people who have worked for institutions for quite longer, they have this complacence that I think this has become my home. So they don't anticipate to leave anytime soon. So when especially restructures happen, or now in the NGO sector where funding is going down, when such news pass by, people get shocked because you may be the target actually. Maybe your skills have become obsolete and they wanted to let you out. But the people who join, for example, maybe on fixed term contracts, you anticipate that you can either get a job after your contract expires or not. So you anticipate to either have it or not. But what I would say that people never expect to lose jobs. Nobody goes into employment to think that the next day I'm going to lose my job.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And why I said it's a yes or no, some people, for example, you can lose your job because of a disciplinary issue. You're caught off guard, maybe in a fraud case, and you're let out. Sometimes it's the change within the organization and they have to merge roles and you have to go. And I think one of the things that happened to us is the information is very linear, especially from management. By the time it reaches the ground, it has taken a lot of time for them to deliberate, but by the time the last employee receives this information, it's like in a snap, But for them, they have gotten this information for quite some time, but they've not passed it on. So it's going to be a shock for me. But I wouldn't say that, when you get a job, you'll anticipate that, yes, you'll lose it at one point or I'll not. But there are challenges of life that may come and you lose it. But I also live, I think, on the principle you talked about how bit of it. For me, if I go into a workspace, I've always lived on the principle. I don't know if you've read the book Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. When you have that mindset that things can change anytime, you prepare.
But Stellah, how do you prepare? How do you prepare? When you said when you live with this principle that things could change anytime, you prepare. And I think how to prepare and thrive at work in the face of uncertainty is why we're here. But first of all, I am thinking about when I go into a job, first you advertised this job. I went through the interviews. I got this job. It is a time for celebration. I'd like to ask this question. How long should I be celebrating? Because, listen, I got a job. Listen, I just got a job. Congratulations. We are cutting cake in the office and I'm your new star employee. Your advert attracted a good talent that you believe in. How long do you think that period of celebration should take? Or I just need to go in and start saying, okay, I know I got this job today, but I may lose it. Let me start preparing today. But how long do you think that period of celebration should last?
I think that it varies from person to person. Like Paul said, some people have experienced changes in their lives quite often, so they know how to prepare. But now I look at a person who has just graduated, very excited. I'm an accountant in this organization. I've gotten maybe a job in this institution. And when do I start to say that I may not have a job tomorrow? For me, when I'm interviewing actually people, I always bring it to light that change is the most constant thing. And when I advertise, I tell them the truth that I advertised for an accountant's position, but I received 1,300 applications.
Yeah.
It gives you a glimpse of how the market is looking for jobs. So you can lose this job you've gotten today if you ever got it, and there's 1,299 people waiting to get the same. So if you have that mindset at the back of your mind, even when we go for interviews, when you're shortlisted, you go to the bench and you find there are 10 applicants. It tells you that this job, if I messed up, there are 9 other people in the queue waiting for the same job.
Yeah.
So I think as HR professionals, we also need to tell people that you went through a process. If you're lucky to get this job, anything can happen and you lose it.
Okay, Stellah, wait. Before we get to that point.
Yes.
I'm in your office. You are giving me a new car.
Yes.
A new laptop.
Yes.
Things are moving. Don't you think, or I would rather be thinking, if I'm the HR in that company, that my job is to start thinking about how to retain you into my team or into the organization. So my question is, at what point and how long or when do we start to have these conversations that, by the way, actually you could lose this job, or actually we could replace you, or actually there's uncertainty. The only constant thing here is change. So at what point, okay, I don't know whether there is even like a standard set point. Paul, what do you think? At what point do you think you should start having conversations with Christian, your new hire, that is going to come and unlock a whole department into high performance? You're motivated, the budget was approved, the guy accepted the offer, and now he's into your office. At what point do you start the conversations like, hey, you are not going to be here forever?
So Christian, that's very interesting, because as an HR professional, you've had the best that you could get out of the market. And many years ago would say you want to keep this person till they retire. And that's the goal of every organization, as long as we're getting the best out of you.
Yeah.
Now, at orientation is when that happens. So if we put you up together with the whole buddy system, and this person comes and tells you how the organization culture has been, how it has changed over time, because at that point we are simply trying our best to paint the picture of this organization, okay? And that's the time, because every time you go into a retirement training, okay?
Yeah.
The financial literacy people tell you should have started preparing for your retirement the day you got your first contract, okay? But here you are, you're 60 years or 59 years.
Wait, did you just say you should start preparing for your retirement when you get your first contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
because that's really planning for what happens.
Okay.
Because at 59, if you're going to hit the train, you've already hit it. It's already too late. So we should start preparing you from the day you join. That this job may not last forever. Okay? We live in a very volatile environment. Technology is changing. Not long ago, electric cars were unheard of. Today, they are there. So if you're a mechanic who is used to working on gasoline engines, it's time that you have to upgrade your skills. So we have to show you that there has to be continuous learning on your part. New skills, prepare, because anything could change. So I think at the point of orientation is when we should tell you, prepare, because this may not last forever.
Okay, so we are saying at the point of orientation is when we also have this discussion that this is a good job, you will enjoy, we want to keep you here, but there is also this part that you have to be planning. You should be planning for A, B, C, and D.
Yeah, and the plans should be around improving your skills.
Yeah.
Okay. Also not being complacent in terms of attitude.
Yeah.
I made it. I was lucky amongst the 1,300 people.
Yeah.
God loves me. It's my perfect opportunity. That could let you get comfortable.
Yeah.
And comfort is the danger of progress.
Okay.
That's what it is. It's the danger of progress. So you should be able to start thinking, how can I keep this job? How can I make myself valuable to this organization? That if that opportunity came, if that time came where they are trying to restructure and see merging departments or replacing technology with, human beings with technology, what will they see and know Paul is good at that they will want to keep me?
Okay. All right. That's good. So Stellah, Paul is mentioning very, very interesting things. Number one, when we get jobs, number one is to, how do we keep this job? And then how do we grow into this job? And then number three is, how then do I navigate in the event that I couldn't keep the job, or the job couldn't keep me, either way. But I know sometimes it's easier said than done. I've been personally in a job where I got the job, and I think I worked in that organization for about 9 years plus. Never thought that I could leave. So what is your thinking or thoughts in terms of then what happens? Because we go into jobs and then now you're happy, you have some money on you, you can hang around town and buy a few whiskeys around, or take people out into movies, and you buy a new car, new suit, you have the latest phone. Then you get more complacent, like Paul said, you are dating in the office and everything is moving on so smoothly. Then we just tend to forget that, you know what, my job was three, like what Paul said. One, get the job. Number two, keep the job. Number three, grow in the job. And then number four, in the event that you couldn't do that, then you also have a plan B. So what do you think really happens that we get to throw all this out of the window?
Okay. A workplace is not made by one person. You rely on so many things to make the you in that workplace. Yourself, who is hired, let me say I'm an accountant. I have my team members. I have my supervisor, and perhaps maybe my supervisor also has a supervisor. There is also a work culture, in this aspect. I may come with these aspirations that I'm going to do A, B, C, D. I want to be here in 5 years. I want to contribute a bit. Because as we're doing interviews, people promise us a lot. When you ask them what is going to be your value add, they'll definitely tell you. And they are looking forward to give you that kind of value. But what happens that derives them from giving you that value? It's not them sometimes. It's the environment, You, like we always say, culture, but the unsaid culture is what loses organizations. There are so many things that happen that make people complacent. For instance, if I go in a workplace, I'm used to coming at maybe 6:30, and my first day, I'm the only person in office till 9. Week 1, week 2, I'm the only person in office by 6:30. What happens to me? In week 3, I'll also come at 9 because everybody comes at 9. I'll adopt to the culture that thrives in that organization. So sometimes we also lose our direction based on what we find on ground. Also, some organizations are not supportive enough to help us see these things. For example, where I work, people had so many things, this has not worked, this has worked, this has not worked. But I think one of the things that we resorted to doing is becoming more open and show people the bigger picture. For instance, if we showed you the financials or how the organization is performing, and you see that maybe we are at this particular mark, it will indicate to you that if we go into this direction for the next 5 years, chances are that I will not have a job. So I either learn a new skill, I either try to merge roles and I can add more value. For instance, if I'm doing HR, do I propose ABCD that can raise money so that I can keep this job? So being open and transparent as management as well sometimes helps to give people a bigger picture. We can have these bigger organizations in terms of names, but when you go into the organization itself, it's nothing. But employees may not know that. So the more open you are, it will give people a glimpse of, okay, it's not rosy every day. Things may turn out to be different. So yeah, the culture plays a lot to divert us from what we want to do, but also the team members. Some people are very negative, that especially those people that have stayed with organizations for quite long, they tend to know everything. They don't want to unlearn, and they think that what they knew then still applies. So they tend to even take away the goods in the new blood that comes in.
Yeah.
Basically, if you're not very grounded and courageous, you lose direction. And before you know it, the company collapses and you have no job. Actually, all of you have no job.
Yeah, sure.
Because they took away the best in you that would have contributed to that organization to stay afloat.
Basically, to pick on what Stellah has mentioned, that there are 3 roles, of course. That 1, keep the job. 2, grow in the job. And then 3, if you can't do both of them, then have a plan B. And that's what you're trying to find out here. Paul, how do we structure ourselves to do the 3 at the same time? I have to keep the job, which is, of course, to convince you that gave me the job that you made the right decision. And then also, I'm looking at the next office upstairs and I'm saying, I'd like to be a better person tomorrow. And then in the event, like Stellah mentioned, the company's performance is not good, I should also be preparing a plan B. So how do we then juggle the 3 at the same time? I don't know that that makes sense. Is that the right way to put it? But how do we do it?
Yes, Christian, it's the right way, juggle the 3. But I think first it also depends on where you are at your career level. If you're straight out of varsity or college, I think the first thing that you need to look into is, what skills do you have? You have all the knowledge you've amassed over the years and you don't have any skill. 2, ask yourself, am I in this job because I want to or because I have to? Because those 2 are different things.
Wait, am I in this job because I want to or because I have to?
Have to could mean that you have bills to pay, you have a lot of pressure, you need the job.
Yeah.
Want to could mean this is, a step to my dream job.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, once you have that clarified, and if it's a job you want to, so the first step is to keep that job, is learn the skills or learn the organization, learn how that organization makes money. So I normally like to say it's the business of the business. Okay? In there, you are spending more time learning your organization, learning the documented culture, okay, learning the politics around it, but also making sure that the knowledge you have is relevant to what is required there. And in every organization today, we know that HR units have an L&D function. So they'll always have trainings, soft skills, technical skills, and all that. Try as much as possible to focus on those. The mistake we all do, we think if I go back to varsity and get a master's, that makes me more employable. All that does is give you more theory, okay? And that theory may not be applied in that industry, in that organization you're in. But most importantly, if you learn the skills, the trade of that organization, and back it up with whatever qualification you need to advance your career, okay? With the right attitude, you're able to keep that job, okay? But you have to keep abreast with the changing times. Technology is moving fast, more than ever, okay? When we started out, we didn't have smartphones. Today, we have everything in a phone. We move with computers. So you need to also be able to keep abreast of what's going on in that industry in which you're playing. Where are the changes going, okay? Am I ready for those changes? Do I need to add on some skills, okay? And once you have those skills, then you're keeping yourself relevant for the future. And it doesn't stop. So learning never stops. Until you're dead, learning never stops.
Keep learning.
Exactly.
All right.
Then, in the eventuality that, it's beyond your control, because some things we can't control. You cannot control that the company made losses. You cannot control that the fund has pulled out. So what happens? So, a few years ago, we're talking about gig workers, okay? People who come in for short gigs, and move on. Okay, maybe those are the more adaptable people to change, because I know I'm at Moving Ads today, I'm shooting a podcast, finish that, get paid, move to the next, because then I know there is no, I'm not expected to be here for the rest of my 30 years of working. The challenge we have is we found the baby boomers who have told us, those are our parents, okay, you get a job, you keep it, you're obedient, and this is really colonial, okay? And then you one day get promoted, and you get promoted until you retire with benefits. That doesn't happen anymore, okay? So when the time comes to prepare is, what do you do? And this is where the conflict is. So because I'm passionate about people and business, okay, I need to create a distinction here. So what happens is then we start running our own side hustles, okay? So you forget about the organization that is actually growing you, and then you focus on your small juice business side.
Yeah, sure.
Now that juice business becomes it becomes an interruption to your core job.
Yeah.
So your manager then sees they're not getting the deliverables they got from Christian 3 years ago, and they make a decision to get rid of Christian. Okay. So we need to be smarter with what's available to us. Financial literacy experts tell us, let money make money for you. You cannot sit in an office at HR Fund House and expect to farm. Okay? But
Say that again.
You cannot sit in an office at HR Fund House and expect to run your farm somewhere in Luero. Okay? So you would rather then invest your money in places where you don't need to take time away from your current employer. Okay? So you use your 8 to 5 to earn your living, and thereafter or before that, you're building your dream. And that's the key thing. So when we get into these jobs, let us get in with the mindset, unless your father owns it, unless you have equity, get into the mindset that this one job I fought to get 5-10 years ago, I could easily lose at a snap of a finger. And that's what it is. The uncertainty of life is you've not prepared for it. The next day you walk in and they say, sorry, we have not been making profits. And you've been in all these meetings and they're telling you we're making losses here and there. But you're like, as long as my juice business is bringing money, I'm okay. But the day you lose that job is the day you realize that that juice business was being supported by that job. So your priorities must be very clear, but more so we should learn and unlearn. That's the key thing.